How are we to trust God? Listen, how often do we speak about trusting in God? Really, in our minds. Today I'm going to share with you in 4 easy steps provided to us by God through Psalm 91. It's going to help you better and me better understand what it means to trust in God and to implement that trust into your daily life. Greetings, everyone. My name's Stevie Garofalo, and this is Reason for Truth, where the truth comes first and the reasons come last, but where we're always and constantly learning, because when we stop learning, we stop teaching, or at least stop teaching well. Reason for Truth is the channel and the organization that helps you, both Christians and non-Christians, cut through the fog of culture's distorted truth, because in our relative world, the truth doesn't change, but the human will to distort it certainly does. We cut through the distortion of current events with the truth as an antidote to the false messages that are so pervasive in our world today. Before we get started, make sure a couple things. Boom, Gonzalo Sinistra, Italian left hook. Smash that subscribe button down there. Then just go ahead and give that little German click to the alert bell down. You won't regret that. Listen, how often do you think about or question trusting in the Lord for your provision, your protection, and all your needs, and your wants, by the way? Today I want to talk to you through Psalm 91, which gives us a good roadmap for learning better how to authentically trust in Him daily for our needs, to get us through the challenges of the day, and to do this with joy. God provided us Psalm 91 for this reason, specifically to help us accomplish this. Now, if you'd like, please turn to Psalm 91. It's a poem. Psalm 91 is a poem. It's written very strong messianic trust poem, and as such, God Himself speaks really in verses 14 to 16. I really want to hone in on that. Psalm 91 can be broken down into 4 parts. I did, certainly. First part I'm going to look at is a confession of confidence in the Lord. It's verses 1 and 2. Second is the assurance that those who trust in the Lord need to fear evil. That's right. Number 3 includes promises of God's protection to the coming one, right? That's interesting. To the coming one. It's not us. Talk about that, verses 9 to 13. And then fourth and lastly includes more detailed description of the Lord's protection of the coming one. And listen, we're included in that as well. That's in verses 14 to 16. So if you have your notepad, your tablet, your laptop, a pen, or maybe you want to write on your pants, whatever you got available to you, rock, man, go for it. Listen, this is what we do, right? We take notes where we can, or just memorize it, all right? Or just study it and enjoy it and take it in. All those things are good things. You can listen to this as many times as you want. This way you won't miss anything. Now listen, let's start number 1 first. Confession of confidence in the Lord. You see, we can look at Psalm 91 and use this as a model again for our own confession of faith and confidence in the Lord, and literally pray this part of the poem for ourselves. Let me read now to Psalm 91, verses 1 to 2. It says this: "Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will show you the Lord. He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence." That's pretty good stuff, man. I mean, we want to claim that for ourselves. And if we look carefully, verses 1 to 2 emphasizes explicitly saying in the secret place, which speaks to the person who trusts in God, is the one who lives close to Him. That's God. The title Most High, by the way, emphasizes God's majesty. It's Psalm 92, verse 1. And the term Almighty is a translation of the divine title Shaddai. Together, the term Most High and Shaddai speak to God as the mountain-like majesty in whose presence there is a secret place or a shadow. Lastly, verse 2 says, "My refuge and my fortress," may be rephrased really as "my secure fortress." That's good stuff, man. That's pretty comforting. You know, in other words, in application, it's in and through your trust. That's your trust and my trust in the living God of the universe. That if you truly trust in God, that you become the one who walks consistently and closely with Him. That's with God. It's through close and a constant walk with God as our secure fortress that leads to an unshakable confidence in the Lord despite the circumstances of life and the world around us. This does not come, by the way, just overnight. Very easily. This can happen overnight. Obviously, it can happen immediately. But this habit is something we need to walk daily. We get better, we get closer with God, and we get better at disciplining ourselves. But if we develop a consistency in our walk and our relationship with Jesus Christ, you're going to be well on your way to step number 2, which is learning to trust in God. Now, number 2, right? Just like I said, second is the assurance that those who trust in the Lord need not fear evil. See, God illustrates this in verses 3 to 8. The second part of the psalm follows a consistency in our walk with Christ and now speaks to developing an assurance as one who trusts in the Lord. Listen, we don't really need to fear evil, despite however scary as it may seem. This is covered in verses 3 to 8, which says this: He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart, which is really defensive wall. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of the wicked. Man, I think we all, we're all begging for that time right here on earth. And we'll explain that a little bit. It doesn't mean that everything always works our way, and if any kind of evil or bad thing comes our way, it's going to drop, and seeing that there's a lot of foretelling of things yet to come. And you're also here mixing that two different things, talking about really God's coming and God's protection of his son, Jesus Christ. But here God uses the words fowler or feathers and pestilence, which are images of a bird trap and various types of disease, which are really symbolic for a general description of the dangers that might come to helpless people. The words his feathers or his wings, actually God describes this really as mother hen under whose wings, and the psalmist can come from refuge. The words shield and buckler indicate complete protection from all harm. And what this is saying is that God is an all-protective shield for the believer. And as such, he sometimes takes us from harm, and sometimes he carries us through harm or through trials and tribulation. But in the end, he's always protecting us according to his will. Looking more closely at verses 5 and 6, which says this: You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in darkness, nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. You see, this is an interplay of words for night and day, which indicate the universal nature of God's protection from terror, the arrow, pestilence, and destruction. You see, when we put together these words, stem to refer a more descriptive or descriptor of evil in general. Say, when we talk about destruction, we're talking about things of evil and pestilence and terror. They're just all one thing, which is really a description for evil, which is a lack of goodness, a deprivation of God, lack of God in general. See, the words 1,000 and 10,000 speak to the masses, like the Israelites in Egypt, who were spared the danger that touched their neighbors, the Egyptians, as found in Exodus 9:26 and then 10:23 and 11:7. Sometimes God does spare his people. Quite often he does. But sometimes he takes us through, not from. See, in God we are truly secure at all times. Verse 5, in all dangers. Verse 6, and in all circumstances. Verse 7, according to God's will. In the end, it's according to God's will and what we allow or disallow according to his overall plan that believers in the Lord in the present may or may not be protected from any assault according to God's will. But in general, we can be at peace because we know God is in control. And if God's going to take you through something, he's going to take me through something, that's not going to be like he leaves us in a dark corner. He's going to be there with us to take us through. So from that sense, yes, he's protecting us all the time. Even when we're going through trials, he's protecting us. But here the psalmist is specifically speaking to future and end time events, as I said earlier. All right, that's number 2. Number 3, third, is the promise of God's protection to the coming one. Who's the coming one? Verses 9 to 13. This begs the question, who is this coming one? Well, God describes directly the same person addressed by the psalmist in verse 9 to 13. This person is the coming one, right? Well, we know this to be the Son of God, Jesus Christ. The psalmist indicates that the coming one's faith in God is the same as the psalmist, which should be the same as ours. There you go. Verses 11 to 13 introduces protection provided by his angels. Remember the stone. These words were used by Satan to tempt the Savior Jesus Christ in Matthew 4, 5 to 6. Remember that? So you see the foreshadowing going on here. God speaks to his protection for those who trust in him, saying they will be safe or protected from the lion, the cobra, God is not simply speaking to the literal animals, but animals, it is snakes, are imagery used by God to illustrate all kinds of evil and really any kinds of dangers that might threaten the coming one. The Father will protect him no matter what the danger, verse 14. And within these verses, God's protection is made clear to his followers as well as the coming one. All right, the coming one, and first the dead, and then his followers. Fourth and lastly is that God gives us, through Psalm 91, an even more detailed description of the Lord's protection of the coming one, verses 14 to 16. I find this fascinating. This fourth and last section highlights the importance of the relationship with the Lord, all right, of our relationship with the Lord. You see, one version says it like this: because he has loved me, therefore I will deliver him. The ESV puts it this way: because he holds fast to me in love, I will deliver him. I will protect him because he knows my name. See, when we read both of these kind of together, it makes clear that God cares most and protects his own, not just outsiders. Well, who are his own? We are his own. All right, some people are going to say, well, this is Old Testament, Steve. This is talking to the Jews, not the Gentiles. Well, hold on a second. Those who truly love God and those who hold fast to him in Jesus Christ in our present time. And listen, we all fall in as grafted. Who are God's own? Those who truly love God and those who hold fast to God in love. And God knows who they are. See, to know my name, verse 14 makes clear, it means to know the Lord personally. Again, chapter 5 and then verse 11 and then 23 chapter verses 3. You can read that. The intimacy of being in relationship with God is emphasized in his reference to being with him in his trouble. Verse 15. I think a lot of us like to be in Jesus Christ, right? In spirit here. But how many of us want to be with him in his trouble? I think most of us do. This implies that if we willfully follow Jesus Christ, taking up our cross, right? Think about that. You want to talk about picking up your cross? Well, that means that you think about Jesus, what he did, picking up his cross, right? All right, authentically, we should expect to embrace following him into sometimes difficult waters, sometimes very challenging times. And in the end, God affirms the full and final salvation, verse 16. And then you could see chapter 62, verse 1, of the one who trusts in him and whom therefore he will set on high, as verse 14 says. He will set on high in an unassailable place that is in him, the Most High, who is the believer's dwelling place. Okay, this wraps up how God promises you in Psalm 91 and me in Psalm 91 how to trust in him. In summary, Psalm 91 is a poem written with very strong messianic trust. And as such, God himself tells us first to make an authentic confession of confidence in the Lord as Lord and Savior, verses 1 to 2. Second, once you have done so, God gives us the assurance that those who trust in the Lord need not fear evil because he is in control and is more powerful than the evil one. We know that. Third, God promises those who authentically believe in him, and we get protection. And there's going to be protection of the coming one, and that's a great promise. Verses 9 to 13. The fourth and last section highlights the importance of relationship with the Lord. One version says it like this: because he has loved me, therefore I will deliver him. Once we understand and embrace these four important elements found in Psalm 91, it's simply a matter of stepping out in faith and trusting in the Lord. The question is, are you up to that challenge? I think you are. So let's just listen to this second time or third time. Take some notes. God's blessings to you. Let's trust in God on a whole new level. I hope this has helped you. And listen, at the end of the day, let's just jump right in and seek God, trust in him, and do the things we need to do to walk strongly with him. So God's blessings. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you do a couple things, man. Boom. Always subscribe. Gonzalo Sedistro. Hit that alert bell. You won't miss any. You want to make sure that if you haven't done it yet, sign up right now for my Locals channel. Stephen Garofalo at locals.com. I'll put a link down there to a little intro video. It's free. You can get some cool stuff. It's my way of doing social media. And in addition to that, if you want to pay a few dollars a month, it's not a lot. Keeps the bots out. You can get some of the more exclusive posts and videos that we do and articles and that type of thing. So God's blessings to you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Stephen Garofalo. This is your Reason for Truth for today.